Today we are going to talk about how to paint with watercolors. First thing we want to talk about is paint. Tubes are the most popular option with professional watercolors. This is a porcelain palette. And I just want to squish a little bit out onto the side here. Now I can leave that alone, I can walk away and I can come back in a year and it won't make any difference. It can dry completely. Now when it comes to watercolor paper, there are many manufacturers nowadays that make really good paper. Watercolor paper comes in all different types. You have bumpy paper and you have smooth paper. These are known as hot press or cold press paper. There is also different grades of paper, different weights to the paper, which means that it's thin or really, really heavy. This is 300 gram paper, so I don't need to tape it down, but that is something that you might want to consider at some point. I recommend going to your local art store and asking them about watercolor paper, or just finding any kind of paper that says watercolor on it. Bring it home, because right now we're just talking about having some fun. The third thing we need is water. Now, you want a little container. A jam jar is okay, as long as it is not going to tip over. I really like these jars because they're so short. And they obviously don't tip at all. You want some water, and you're going to want 2 containers of water. 1 container will be for your dirty water and 1 for your clean water. So in the beginning, I recommend getting a brush that's nice and small for details, something middle-sized for filling in areas, and something nice and big and fat so that you can do washes. And the last thing we're going to need is a little bit of paper towel. So first I'm going to wet the paper. You always want to start with a wet brush. Just want to touch the paint. Now let's do exactly the same thing without wetting the paper first. So here's how it looks. Wet on wet, wet on dry. Wet being the fact that your paint is wet on dry paper. Just putting the paint down. I'm now lifting up a little bit of water and adding some water to this paint. What we've done here is we've gone from a dark color to a light color. This is fresh paint out of the tube, and do you see how really, really dark and thick that is? The moment I add a little bit of water, though, it starts to come to life. So this is how we control the tint, the intensity. We have gone from one solid color and pulled it all the way out. So let's say, for example, I put down a little square of water. Now, as soon as I see the texture like that, that's going to be the perfect moment to drop my color in. The paint will not leave the square. It's only going to go where the water is. Unless, of course, the drop becomes too big, the little puddle is too big, and it breaks through and you have a drip. Voila, and we have our little square. This is a very important part of watercolor to understand. Watercolor will not flow onto dry paper. You need to put the water down first. So taking these 2 techniques that we have just learned, let's go ahead and paint something. How about a fig? Now you might find that it helps if you look at this on an angle, dab some paint onto my picture. Now we could leave it there. This would be a nice simple wash. It somewhat resembles our fig. What I want to do now, and this is still wet, is I'm going to draw some lines into the fig here. And the 2 colors are going to blend and mix together. And this white spot in the center I'm going to leave white because that will act as a little bit of highlight, and it will also make the picture a little more interesting. So again, maybe a little more shadow. Now this is all wet, so I can do this as many times as I want until the painting dries. If on the other hand I've decided that I have too much paint, I can dry my brush on a piece of paper towel. Now I can come along and I can do the opposite. Instead of putting paint down, I'm able to pick paint up. Don't forget, you can always move your picture around It's nice if you're working on a piece of paper that is not attached to anything too big. I wouldn't attach it to the table. A little board is okay if your paper is not really strong and it's going to buckle, but it's really great if you can move it around, because this way you're going to be able to approach it from different sides. Now if we have a hard edge that we don't like, we can come back again with a little bit of water and just move it around. So say here we want to make this a little softer, and just gently rub it back and forth with our brush. I will come back to this pig in a new tutorial where we go through the intermediate and the advanced steps on how to actually do shadows and details and fill it all in and make it really pop off the page. But for now, I hope that is enough, that you understand you have your paints, your waters, your brushes, and your paper. I am Scarlett, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next class. Toodaloo!